And welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Bears Brothers podcast. It's time for our Week 13 preview as we will attempt to determine which dumpster fire is the hottest, the 1-9 49ers or our beloved but 2-9 Chicago Bears. There's a lot on the line, draft position, but also some respect because the all-time series is tied at 30, 30, and 1 in the regular season. So who's going to prevail on Sunday and take over the series lead? I'm your host, Will DeWitt, and tonight I'm joined, like I always am, by my two fellow Bears brothers, Brandon Hazel and Nicholas Moriano. Gents, you ready to talk some Bears football?
Always.
Absolutely, Will.
Awesome. So here's a rundown of the show so that way you know what to expect. First, we're going to go ahead and start things off with our preview of this week's matchup against the 49ers, including the key stats and matchups to keep an eye on. Then we're going to discuss some more Bears-specific news, including the impact of Danny Trevathan's injury, Daniel Braverman's elevation to the active roster, which is, I know, people are excited about, and Kyle Fuller practicing for the first time since September. And finally, we're going to end the show tonight answering some fan questions that were submitted before the show. All right, guys, let's start our 49ers preview. And, I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm still a little salty from last season's 26-20 loss to the 49ers last year in overtime. I'm sure that the Bears, who were here a year ago, haven't forgot about that either. But, Brandon, this is what I'm going to call an interesting game, just to, use a lack of a better word here. But do you have a few keys that you want to run through to look at this game?
Yeah, I've got 5 of them, and I think interesting is a good word to put in there because I don't know of a better word to put in there myself. But first key, when watching this game, we got to know that the 49ers offense leads the league in 3-and-outs and fumbles lost. They've lost 11 fumbles. So that being said, the Bears defense can't just sleep. They can't just think, oh, they lead the league in 3-and-outs and fumbles lost. So, once you think that, you've already lost the game. So the Bears defense has got to come out to play and force those 3-and-outs and force those fumbles. Key number 2, Kaepernick will beat us on his feet if they cannot contain him. He led the team in rushing last week against the Dolphins, 113 yards. So I'm curious to know what you guys think the matchup for that's going to be. Do you think the inside linebackers will do a better job of containing him, being a spy, or do you think the outside linebackers are going to have the upper hand in conquering that task?
This has to be like a total team effort here when it comes to, containing a mobile quarterback. I retweeted a good story from the Tribune, and they kind of broke down what the Bears' issues were when it came to containing Marcus Mariota last week, who really tore us up in a run game. And really, it just kind of came down to the trust issues on defense, which is to be expected given, all the circumstances of all the injuries that have taken place. But really, Brandon, the outside linebackers have to trust the inside linebackers and kind of vice versa, because if not, it just kind of creates wide open running lanes on those read option plays that we kind of saw last week. Because if you're thinking that your teammate won't cover, like say the outside contain, and you go over there to take over that, and then your teammate does, then there's 2 players on the outside, nobody on the inside cut, and then that just leaves another wide open running lane. So everyone needs to fulfill their duty, fulfill their gaps, and I think that's going to be the biggest issue, especially given all the injuries. Nick, what about you?
Well, I think it's going to be more on the outside linebackers because we're going to have 2, young guys starting an inside linebacker this week, most likely Timu and Kwiatkowski. And if that's the case, these outside linebackers who are more experienced, obviously, than the 2 young guys are definitely going to have to communicate. And Brandon, going back to your first key, I know that the 49ers have lost 11 fumbles this season, but the Chicago Bears are tied for 27th in the league with 3 other teams with fumbled recoveries with 3. So I think those kind of cancel each other out. So they fumble a lot. The Bears just don't recover a lot of fumbles. So I don't know if that's going to be a key, a big thing going forward. Hopefully the Bears can cause fumbles because they haven't caused many turnovers. But definitely outside linebackers, I think, are going to have to communicate and help those young guys inside.
True. Brandon, you want to go ahead and start that third key?
Sure, I can do that. My third key, the offense became one-dimensional against Miami. The 49ers offense became one-dimensional against Miami without a deep pass threat. The Dolphins defense was able to eliminate Torrey Smith from the offense as he only had 3 receptions for 24 yards, and that left either Kaepernick to scramble, which felt like he did for most of the game, or hit the underneath dump-off routes. And if the Bears can contain those underneath dump-off routes, tackle him when he catches the ball, don't let him get much yak yards after the catch, then I think they'll be able to keep this 49er offense in check. Key number 4, the 49ers defensive line, like we just kind of talked about with the Bears, trusting each other. I've called it gap discipline.
Ooh, that's fancy.
Kind of like what we just talked about. I've seen a couple times against Miami where they had 2 or 3 guys hitting the same gap not allowing the linebacker to go in there and make the tackle. So I think the 49ers can have the same trust issues that the Bears have that we just talked about. And the last key is 49ers coverage. Who is Jimmy Ward lining up against? He's a very solid coverage player. And then Barkley also has to make sure he knows where Antoine Bethea is, as he's the most productive guy in the secondary with 73 total tackles, an interception, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery.
Good stuff there. I like those keys. I like that gap discipline. That was, like I said, a very fancy way to go about it. But last week, I mentioned that I thought the Titans were going to be what I called a matchup nightmare. But the Bears, really, they hung in there tough. And this week, it's kind of the opposite because the Bears do match up pretty well against these 49ers, injuries at all. But the one concern that I do have here is the fact that hopefully the Bears don't play down to their competition. The fact that they can come into the game assuming it's going to be an easy one. And I sure hope not because, guys, to be honest, no 2-9 should ever feel that way coming into any game ever. But I have a feeling that the Bears will, just because it kind of seems like each and every game, no matter if the opponent's really good or mediocre, besides like the first 2 weeks of the season, the Bears have hung in there kind of close. And it's just they kind of play to the level of their competition. Which is not good because the 49ers defense comes into the game, guys, with the second fewest sacks in the league with only 19. And last week, I thought the Bears offensive line did an impeccable job neutralizing the Titans pass rush. They came into the game third in the NFL with 30 sacks. So, Nick, this is for you. Do you think that the Bears offensive line is going to be able to kind of build off last week's performance?
They should, but you mentioned a good point, Will. The Bears like to play down to their competition, and I feel like this is one of those games where that offensive line, for some reason, just gives up a whole bunch of, breakthroughs in the line, just has Barkley running scared out there. But I hopefully they match up well, but like you said, they just match up to the competition. I could see this one of those games where the Bears just kind of let one go. I mean, in a 2-9 season playing, a 1-10 team, it's gonna be great to watch. Just to be Sunday Night Football, you guys, right? I mean,
oh gosh, oh gosh. But no, like you said, the more I want to look at this, the more I can just pretty much 100% say that the 49ers are absolutely the worst defense in the entire league. They give up. And I'm not kidding. This is not a typo. I'm not misspeaking. They give up 171 rushing yards per game, which is 30 more than the next worst team in the league. They also give up the most points per game at 31.3, the most yards per game at 424.5, and they have the second worst third down defense. They allow opponents to convert on about 50% of their third downs, only about 47.5%. So, Nick, I mean, I know the Bears seem to play to their competition level, but they have to be able to move the ball, especially because they were able to do it against the Titans last week, right?
Yeah, I would think so. And here's another stat. So during a 7-game stretch for the 49ers, they had the worst run defense, and almost do now, in the league. And they're allowing 211.3 rushing yards per game. So 5.46 yards per carry. And their passing defense was allowing 251.4 yards per game. Then over these past 3 weeks, they kind of switched it up. Defensive coordinator Jim O'Neill switched things up scheme-wise, put some players in different positions. And over the past 3 weeks, the 49ers got better at stopping the run, but they actually got worse at stopping the pass. So you could take it. It doesn't matter. The 49ers defense is bad either way.
Right.
So this Bears offense should be able to do some good things. I mean, they had a great second half, just wide receivers were not catching, balls that were thrown right to them. So I think Barkley in this offense, and given that the offensive line played well against the Titans, should go out and be able to perform against a weak 49ers San Francisco defense,
Yeah. What would Barkley, looking at his last game, I know you weren't in post-game show, so I'm curious about your thoughts. What do you think he needs to improve upon the most in his second career start?
I think it's just decision making when you're down in the the red zone. Those are points regardless if you make that pass or not. Just throw it away. Just throw a ball away. That's all he needs to do. They left points out there, and 2 red zone interceptions last week easily could have been field goals had he just thrown the ball away. But that's my biggest thing because I thought Barkley stood in the pocket. He took some hits, but delivered the ball accurately to his receivers. So the receivers just got to show up, and he just has to make better decision making.
No, I like that. On the flip side, let's talk about this 49ers offense just briefly because brief is a pretty good word when it comes to their time of possession because they come into the game only holding onto the ball about 26 minutes and a half, which is the fewest in the league. And the Bears, I think, are 29th in the league in this regard. So it's seriously going to be a battle of 2 offenses who just don't want to take care of the ball or keep the ball. Well, maybe they do and they just can't. But Brandon, I know that Chip Kelly likes this fast-paced offensive approach. So what do they do on offense in that kind of regard, and why haven't they been able to hold on to the football?
Just poor execution, and I would say a quarterback controversy, kind of like we have here in Chicago. They started the season with Blaine Gabbert, and now they've transitioned over to Colin Kaepernick, who's fitting into the Chip Kelly system better because Chip Kelly, obviously with Marcus Mariota at Oregon, had a very good system where if Mariota didn't see anything, he'd just take off and run, and then they'd be able to get the next play going right away, and that's exactly what Colin Kaepernick does. Just the difference is at Oregon, they were able to execute that, and Colin Kaepernick or Blaine Gabbert in San Francisco has not been able to execute. So mostly execution issues, I would say, for the most part.
Well, that's something that we've grown accustomed to here in Chicago as well, but not to the same degree, I don't think, but pretty darn close. But I think this leads right into, because we're doing a brief preview today, let's go ahead and go right into our bold prediction segment, guys. And Brandon, I want you to go first. What's going to be your bold prediction for this game on Sunday?
Oh, you guys were talking about the Bears' offensive line possibly giving up more sacks. They like to play down in their competition. Well, my bold prediction is they go another week without giving up a sack.
Wow,
I think they come to play.
That'll be the third time this year, which is that's insane actually when you think about it. But Nick, how about you?
You know, even though I said that the Bears are bad at causing, they're not bad at causing fumbles, they're just bad at recovering them. I say they cause 2 fumbles and recover one of them on Sunday.
I like it. You should go ahead and look real quick. How many fumbles have they forced compared to how many have they actually recovered? Because that's a good rate that we should figure out.
Yeah,
but
look that up right now.
Sweet. My bold prediction, guys. And I went bold. Jordan Howard is going to rush for over 200 yards. Because only 3 running backs in the NFL that average more yards per rushing attempt than, Jordan Howard. So, he's one of the best in that regard. And like I said, the 49ers defense lets up over 170 yards per game on the ground, which was a number that was even bigger a couple weeks back. They've allowed 3 150-yard rushers, a.k.a. big day incoming for Jordan Howard. And if he doesn't get 20-plus touches, guys, which I feel like we say this each and every week, but especially this week with going up and against the NFL's worst rush defense, Dowell should be fired. Okay, maybe not fired like right away, but that's something that they should honestly sit down and consider if he's going to go out there and not run the ball, because this is just screaming run the ball, but who knows? If it struggles, then obviously change it up. But coming in, they should at least be considering a very heavy run attack. All right, guys, time for our game picks. And Brandon, let's go to you. What do you got?
I know you're saying that the San Francisco defense gives up 31 points per game. I don't know how confident I am yet in this Bears offense. So I have the Bears winning 18-14.
Whoa,
that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. Nick, you?
Before I give my pick, the Bears have caused 12. They've caused 12 forced fumbles and have only recovered 3. So they're
25%.
Yeah, wow. Is that right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely has to improve. But I picked them to win on my radio show on Tuesday, the Bears. So I'm gonna give them 21-13. Bears are gonna actually win.
I like that. But yeah, geez, 25%. You're only recovering 25% of the fumbles that you force. That's not good. The ball is just not bouncing our way, which I think we just know that by now.
Yeah, we definitely do.
All right, so my game pick, guys, I am slightly more optimistic. I think Matt Barkley and company, they're going to get things a little bit more together. We're not going to see 10 drops. Gosh, I hope we don't see 10 drops. But I have the Bears winning 24, which would be the first time all year that they scored more than 23 points, compared to the 49ers 21. I think it's going to be a close game. It's a battle between 2 pretty bad teams, and
you think it's going to
go ahead.
Cold. I think rain is actually predicted for Sunday. That they can pull out the most points for the season
against the 49ers defense. Sure, if they run the ball, yes. If they can, if they go out there running, and the 49ers aren't used to that Soldier Field slippery turf, grass, I think that might help us out a little bit.
Man, if it's raining, that's just asking for a fumble to happen. So it's going to happen, you guys. Now, my bold prediction is coming true. Watch.
All right. We'll keep an eye on that for you, Nick. Don't worry. Eyes are now officially glued to that. But, all right, guys, I think that does it for a game preview. I really didn't want to go into much of an in-depth preview considering the circumstances of this game. It's just a lot of bad everywhere you look. So let's kind of shift our focus into some more big-picture Bears-specific topics. And we touched on this earlier, but I want to hit on Danny Trevathan's season-ending injury and what it means for this Bears team now, for the rest of the year, and also in the future. I have a little spiel planned for this, so I want to go ahead with you guys first. How do you think this is going to impact the team this year, and do you think this might be an issue down the road? Nick?
Well, what I was reading is that this injury that Danny Trevathan sustained is, a lengthy one at that. I saw, I forgot who tweeted it, but could be an 8 to 9 month recovery time, and that's a huge impact. But what that does, it just gets the younger guys, more game reps. So when Danny Trevathan does come back, hopefully comes back 100% at some point next season, that the guys behind him will be ready. He's obviously going to be missed on the field. He's a great player, big free agent signing for us. So, the guys behind him will get reps. So, you got to look at the positives in each, negative situation.
Yeah, last week, Nick Kwiatkowski, he played really well. But this week, one of Brandon's favorites, someone who follows us on Twitter, John Timu, should probably see a ton more playing time come this week in Trevathan's absence. So, Brandon, what are you expecting out of Timu for this upcoming game and also the remainder of the season?
He'll be the stopgap guy. I don't think he's going to be a projected starter looking forward into future years. Obviously, they're going to keep Trevathan around. I can go on a different spiel on that. But with Freeman and Trevathan out, he's going to be a good stopgap guy. I liked what he did last year for the most part. I thought he was one of the more influential inside linebackers that we had compared to Christian Jones and John Anderson. I like Timu compared to those two guys, and I think he'll continue to do things in the right direction here and continue to be a solid backup for the Bears linebackers.
I like it. Yeah, it seems like we're just losing everybody in pairs right now. The duo at inside linebacker, the duo at guard for a while on the defensive line. But all these injuries are just piling up. And for me, I'm excited to see Timu out there because in the short bursts that we've seen him over the past year and a half, he just makes plays on the ball, and he's someone who might be able to put us over the edge in terms of forcing those turnovers, and hopefully Nick's bold prediction come true there. But that's what I'm excited to see. Timu possibly forcing some turnovers. And then Kwiatkowski, I just am enjoying what I'm seeing out of him. There's definitely some growing pains here and there, but overall, I think with the extended playing time, the Bears might be developing a very strong inside linebacking core that's really deep when you look at it.
I think to add real quick while you got to pause there, I believe in the season preview when we were breaking down positions, I think Nick said the last Bears inside linebacker to play safety at college for a little bit was Brian Urlacher. So maybe this is the chance for Kwiatkowski to prove that he's going to be that guy. Maybe he is the next Brian Urlacher.
Very true.
Well, I think if so, we'll be blessed, obviously. But
well, it's going to take time, but here's the time for him to work on that and improve on it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, guys. I'm really concerned about Danny Trevathan's long-term longevity here because, coming into Chicago, Trevathan had a history of injuries. We knew that coming in. He had reconstructive knee surgery in Denver after a trio of injuries to his left knee, a few other minor knee hiccups throughout his career. He had to get surgery on his thumb earlier this season, and now he ruptured his right patellar tendon. So, the saying that I always believed in is the best predictor of future injuries is past injuries. And we all know he's undersized, and I'm starting to worry that he just might be one of these injury-prone guys, which isn't, good considering the fact that back-to-back years now, Ryan Pace has spent pretty big money on linebackers who are getting injured more times than not and more times than we want to see. I know injuries have taken a toll on this entire team. I love what Danny Trevathan brings to the table when he's on the field, but I'm starting to worry if he's not going to be on the field as much as we want him, and that's why it's really good to get these young guys some really quality reps here for the remainder of the season. But what do you guys think here? Am I overreacting, or do I have some cause here?
You do have some. Oh, go right ahead, Brandon.
Nick, you started.
Okay, I started. Brandon. Well, you do have, that's obviously is a concern, but when you mention like these injuries and injury history, obviously I just thought of Thomas Davis from the Carolina Panthers. Yes, he's had a whole bunch of. He's like torn his Achilles like 3 times, but he's one of the most productive linebackers in the league. Completely different injuries, but players can overcome these things. Hopefully, Dan Trevathan, can do that. I know it's not the same injury, but they both play the same position, inside linebacker. It's not like it can't be done, but it is concerning. It's definitely concerning when you mention it. He's had a history of injuries. So, we just need to get the right guys in there who are going to rehab him correctly. The guys who are at Hallis Hall now are not the guys, that's for sure. So, you got to get new guys to rehab, our current injured players, and hopefully Dan Trevathan comes back better than ever.
Yeah, no, I'm just worried that it's now both knees, and the left one's had a ton of issues, and now the
Mhm.
right one, and like you said, this is a very serious injury that's going to take some time, and I just worry that these are going to start, taking a toll on his body. Yeah, I mean, I know he's young, but I mean, I know it's different sports, but I kind of think of Derrick Rose in this kind of regard,
Oh
where,
my God. You took my spiel.
hey, there we go, always on the same page there, B. But no,
Well,
I
now
just,
you know what I'm going to say. So
well, go ahead. I want to hear how you wanted to say it. Go ahead.
you don't have to go far. You actually don't have to go out of the city of Chicago to find the last guy with knee injuries that changed his career, Derrick Rose. Granted, like Will just said, different sports. And in football, we've seen guys get injured before and come back and still be productive. It happens. It's part of the game. But just with the length of it, and obviously knee issues aren't. I mean, Peyton Manning had 4 neck surgeries, and he came back and won a Super Bowl. So
That's Peyton.
anything's possible when we put it that way. Long term, I'm worried. So I guess get the best out of him when he comes back. You obviously don't want to drive him into the ground. You want to keep him as long as possible, but keep him while he's productive after the injury.
Right, exactly. I mean, again, like I said, he's someone when he's on the field, he brings the mentality that we want this Chicago Bears defense to embody. He's one of those, leaders by example, one of those players that people really rally around. So, I mean, for the well-being of both him and the Chicago Bears defense down the road, I hope he's okay. But if things, kind of go how they've been going throughout his career, he's not going to stay healthy because he hasn't been able to. There's only one season that he was able to stay fully healthy, and that was last year in Denver. But I even think he missed a couple games that year, if I'm not mistaken. But I might be wrong there. But if so, that was his only year that he has. And again, it could be due to he's a little bit undersized going up against the big-bodied offensive lineman. But just things that we need to consider moving forward, at least think about, because this is definitely concerning, at least in my book. All right, let's switch from this very somber topic to something that we're all very excited about, and that is Daniel Braverman getting elevated to the active roster. He's been someone we've been high on since the night that he was drafted. Actually, sorry, day that he was drafted. And we were talking about it on that podcast, the very night, just what he can bring, that slot guy. But Nick, what is so exciting about this for you?
It's because the Bears have never really had that slot guy, and I think that Braverman, obviously he has to go out there and produce, but there's just so much hype that we had around him, and I'm glad that he's just getting his chance. And with 10 drops last week, Braverman dropped 11 passes in 2014 and 2015 in his final years at Western Michigan. So this guy's sure-handed. He's going to create separation from the defenders. So it's good that he's getting a shot, and might as well in this 2-9 season with a couple games left, show what he can do, and hopefully he can establish chemistry with Barkley and just have that go forward into next season. But I'm super excited to watch him play on Sunday.
No, me too. I think this is much needed. Like you said, the Bears haven't had that true slot guy. And I know this is a tad bit different, so bear with me here. But, Zach Miller was our threat in the middle of the field guys. And Braverman, he's not a tight end, but he's a guy in a slot who can separate from those linebackers. And I think he can be the guy to kind of open up the middle of the field again, because that's one thing that we saw last week. We had a few crossing routes, but for the most part, we just don't have that inside target. Most of the passes were going to the outside deep shots, and that's because Miller's out. And I think that this is going to help us establish a bigger, not bigger, because he's a little bit smaller, but a lot smaller. But it's going to at least be another target in the middle of the field that we can work with. Brandon, I know Braverman, someone you've been on the fence about a little bit because it's you explain it. What are your thoughts?
Back to the season preview shows, I was the only one to say that Braverman would get cut. And he's making me eat my words. So as long as he's going to go out there and be productive and prove that he's got solid hands, show up in the limelight like we talked about when he played Ohio State, Michigan State, at Western Michigan, then by golly, he deserves a spot on the team. I just want to see that chemistry between Barkley and Braverman. Maybe that's a combo going forward. That might be a stretch. The team can build off. Maybe these are some building blocks working in-house, so maybe 2 unexpected sources leading the team this week.
Well, you guys kind of talked about that chemistry with Barkley, and you have to remember, guys, that they kind of have a little bit of chemistry already built because both of them worked on the scout team for the majority of this season. So they do have a little bit of, repertoire with one another. And speaking of Barkley, I love this quote he had on Braverman earlier this week. He said, quote, He's a little smaller target, but I think he plays big. And how he's able to catch the ball, he's got solid hands. But I think especially coming from the slot, whether it's working at nickel or even against some of the base backers that we'll get this week, he can make guys miss. And that just excites me, guys. I mean, it really does. That's a quote that you want to hear from your quarterback talking about one of your receivers. And I hope that he's right. I hope he can make some guys miss. And if he, I think once Braverman, I think all it's going to take is for him to have a good game or a good game or two. And then he's just going to kind of have some built confidence. And then he's just going to kind of take off because Brandon, you hit on it. And I totally forgot about the preview shows when we talked about how when he was at, Western Michigan, in the big games, he really showed up the biggest, and he's not afraid of the limelight. He comes up really big in big-time situations, and I think he's going to prove that throughout the remainder of this season. So I'm excited for him. Do you guys want to have some fun and do a bold prediction or just a prediction of what he's actually going to do in his first ever career game?
Yeah, sure. We can do that.
All right, Nick, I saw you got a real big smile down there when I said that. So
I did, and now that I'm going first, I'm caught off guard. No, let's see. First career game against a 49ers defense, secondary that's god-awful. Braverman's going to have 6 catches for like 70 yards.
I like it. B?
I'm going to say he gets 5 for 57 yards.
Wow, I was going to do 5 for
And a
55. Oh, okay. I didn't have the touchdown, though.
I'll throw a touchdown in there.
Okay. Well, you will. Okay. I thought it was Barkley, but if you will, that's okay, too.
Oh, I mean, Barkley can have one, too.
Okay. Sounds good to me. All right, so let's flip the sides of the ball here again. Let's flip back to this Bears defense, and let's talk about Kyle Fuller. He returned to practice this week. Are you excited or not? Nick?
Not excited, and I want to see what he can do. Not excited that he's back, but I definitely want to see what Kyle Fuller still has because there's been a lot of question marks as to whether the Bears are going to keep him, after the season. And there's also been speculation or rumors saying that he might actually be a safety or some, But I want to see what he can do. Hopefully, because the Bears are, dissipated at the secondary right now, so they definitely need a guy who can at least go out there. He's a former first-round pick. You want to see him succeed, but if he doesn't show anything in these last couple of games, he could be done here in Chicago.
Whoa, that's a little stronger than I actually thought it would be. But, yeah, Brandon?
I think Nick's pretty close. I'm excited because it's a warm body back. That's something that the Bears need. Replace LeBlanc a little bit, give him some time off.
This sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah. I don't know how long he's going to stick around here in Chicago. He's had injury issues. And I think Zach brought it up a couple shows ago. He hasn't done much after those couple games where he forced all those turnovers. So if he can prove that he's going to be productive, then he deserves to come back. But if not, I have no problem building off of trading him or letting him go, what have you.
All right, well, here's my issue. You guys talked about productive, okay? And I understand that. But, yes, his turnovers dropped off. But it's going to drop off when you have that kind of hot start to your rookie season.
Definitely.
That's just a given, especially given the circumstances. He wasn't on any, good defenses or anything. Let's give him that. And on top of that, last year, if I remember correctly, if my memory serves me right, they talked about how he was one of the least targeted corners in all the league, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to look into that.
I think you're right. That does come back to me, but that was more towards the end of the season, which is totally fine because at the beginning he was leaving guys wide open, and that's, I think, where my next concerns come from is if he's going to do that again.
Right, which is understandable, and that's the thing. This is where it gets really tough because he hasn't practiced, like I said, since September. So he's definitely going to have some rust on him. I mean, there's no way he's playing this week. But if he gets
down to it, I don't think he gets cut at the end of this year. I think he's got to go through training camp again and OTAs. And I would say by the end of training camp next year, we'll know whether or not he's going to continue to be around.
No, that's very smart. I think it would be really dumb of the Bears to let him go beforehand because A, he's coming back from the injury. B, Nick, you said it, former first-round pick. He has the talent. He comes from a football pedigree, guys. All his brothers played, in the NFL. We talked about how it'd be cool if they all came here to have a Fuller House kind of situation going on. But no, it's something that we really need to, I think we just need to express some patience with him. He's still very young. He has, a lot of football smarts. He's been sitting out all year and kind of absorbing Fangio's system that he played in a year ago. So I think he can step in right away and be productive and not leave some of these coverage open like we've seen from a LeBlanc. Because if that's what I'm thinking. Okay, LeBlanc, we give him crap. But at the same time, he's had pretty good games off and on. And I think if you had Fuller out there with his capabilities in this defense, I think that takes it, up a notch, because I think Fuller can be, I don't know. I mean, I think he can be a difference maker because
I think Fuller's got more talent than LeBlanc does.
Yeah, well,
so we even keep him around at that point, and if LeBlanc ends up not making the cut, then so be it. I'd much rather have the talented guy around, and if that is being Fuller, whether quarterback's not targeting him because he's playing good coverage or he's taking the ball away, being productive in those ways, then I'd be more than happy to keep him around.
Yeah, because think about this. He came in under Mel Tucker. No one wants to play for Mel Tucker on defense, right? And then he came in. He had to learn a whole new system, because we came in. Tucker kept Lovie Smith's cover 2. Then he had to come in and learn Fangio's system, which took some time. He had some growing pains, but like we said, towards the end of the season, he started to come around a little bit. And I really think that with this off time, the Bears were wise not to rush him back, let him absorb the system a little bit more. And I really think, guys, that people are going to be surprised what they see from Kyle Fuller. Maybe not this season, but I think if he sticks around throughout training camp and next year, I think he's going to remind people why he was a first-round pick. I really do, and I have faith that he will. You guys have any final thoughts on Fuller before we switch over to fan questions?
I'm interested to see how he does for the rest of the year and then in training camp next year to see where he stands with everybody else. I think, like you said, patience is key, and I think I had kind of more of a knee-jerk reaction. Let him go, cut him, whatever. I think that was more of a knee-jerk reaction for me, so I apologize on my behalf.
Oh, you're okay. Nick?
If it doesn't work out at corner, just because they are different schemes, he did successful in Mel Tucker's because it's more of a zone-based corner, and he did have those interceptions. And Vic Fangio, you play a lot of man-to-man, so if things don't work, I kind of want to see if he does, if they try him at safety. I want to see how that goes. That'll be interesting to see because Kyle Fuller obviously is an athletic guy, so I think that if maybe it doesn't work at corner, you try him at safety. That could be a possibility going forward for the Bears.
I don't see what you can lose if you're starting to doubt his corner ability. You might as well, because the Bears' safety position is still one of those positions it's one of those things that we still can't kind of figure out. But and again, that's not the only issue we have in the secondary. This secondary needs a little bit of work throughout this offseason to help this defense take its next step. But Fuller is going to be a big piece of it. At least I hope so. But we'll find out. Only time will tell. All right, guys, let's get to fans' questions, which a lot of the focus of them that came in for us was a lot on the Bears quarterback situation, as it's heavily weighing on the minds of Bears fans, which I understand. So our first question comes from Michael McNeil, and he asked, in relation to the draft, a lot of experts are projecting that this quarterback class is going to be the weakest in the past few years. Would it make sense? Would it make more sense to take the secondary in the first round? Hey, look, he knows we need help in the secondary too. And a quarterback in the second round, or trade down altogether and stockpile some picks for this upcoming draft and the one following. Brandon, I'm going to go ahead with you on this one first. What are you thinking?
If the Bears end up with a top 5 pick, you don't trade it away to stockpile it, first of all. And I don't like any quarterback in the first round not named Deshaun Watson. So if he's off the board, then I really like Jabril Peppers or an under-the-radar guy, Desmond King. He's had 10 interceptions last 2 years at Iowa, and Nick can tell you all about it. He was on the field for some of those games. Well, for the last one against Michigan anyway. But college football as a whole has not produced very many quarterbacks. I think the college football system's only produced 4 or 5 solid quarterbacks in that same amount of time, 4 or 5 years. I like what Watson brings. He's a playmaker. He does have some arm strength that can be worked on, but he's accurate. So if he's off the board, I don't like taking a quarterback in the top 5 outside of Deshaun Watson. So then I'm looking at Jabril Peppers, who is very versatile, can play multiple positions on defense, and he could be a kick and or punt returner, which is something the Bears also need, or can improve on, I should say. And I already brought up Desmond King. He's had 2 interceptions last year. So I say go secondary if Deshaun Watson is off the board.
I'm going to kind of have to agree with you here. I think that now this is the thing. Between doing this show and being very micro-focused on the games and the matchups, and on top of that covering, the Indiana basketball beat, I haven't really looked at the draft class coming up. And it's one of those things where between now, January, it's going to change. Between January, February, it's going to change, and so on and so forth. And I really think it's really hard to determine anything right now, especially given we don't know where we're picking. The boards are going to shuffle a million times. But overall, I trust Ryan Pace in this regard, whereas if he believes in a quarterback that can lead this team for the next decade and he's there in that top 5 pick, get him. If not, and he thinks he can grab one of them in the second round, I'm fine with that too. I mean, look at Dak Prescott. Not a big deal. It depends on where you can find him and if you think he's going to be there. So I trust Ryan Pace here, but overall, I still believe best player available no matter what. But Nick, how about you?
All right, you guys. So I just read an article from The Athletic. I actually subscribed to them today by Dan Durkins, and he touched on the quarterbacks, where to draft them, and how much success they have. So playoff teams the last 5 years. 60 teams have made the playoffs, 25 quarterbacks. 14 are first-round picks. In the second round, only 3 have made the playoffs. The third round, 3. Fourth round, 1. Fifth round, none. Sixth round, 2. And then undrafted free agents, 2. So it gets worse and worse as you go down the line. Makes sense. Right. Last 5 years, the number of playoff wins by round. So round 1, quarterbacks drafted in that first round have won 65 playoff games. And then it just takes a huge dump off. Round 2 has only been 10. Round 3 is 8, and 7 of those are from Russell Wilson. Fourth and fifth rounds, you draft a quarterback. None have won a playoff game in the last 5 years. And then round 6, there's 22 wins, all from Tom Brady. So this being said, if Ryan Pace believes a guy is, believes in a quarterback and he's higher up in the draft, I say you go get him. Because, there's been so many mediocre quarterbacks in Chicago's history. It's time that they finally get a guy and invest in somebody. And I know, Brandon, you like your guy. I like Mitch Trubisky. And this is a guy that I think he's only has one, year of playing time at North Carolina. But if Ryan Pace believes that, he can have a veteran start in the beginning of the season and have this guy develop a little bit, I go all for it. Because you see the numbers. You draft a guy that's higher, you're gonna eventually maybe make the playoffs and get some wins if you draft him in the first round. Obviously, it doesn't account for every quarterback. And free agency is not the answer. Only 9 quarterbacks have won the Super Bowl in the last 15, or 9 QBs have won the last 15 Super Bowls, and only 3 are free agents: Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Brad Johnson. So, and 5 of those 9 quarterbacks are first round draft picks. So, free agency, I don't think is the answer. And I think that if Ryan Pace is confident in his guy, even though he doesn't have much experience, because most of these quarterbacks don't. You go and draft him, develop him, and just, have a veteran play a little bit for the season, but definitely do not trade down from the first round to get a bunch of picks.
All right, so let's keep this rolling, and let's just throw in another fan question. Let's stay on the same topic here. Our bud Tristan, he asked, do you think Ryan Pace will draft another excellent class for the 3rd time? Will he add a QB? We kind of already touched on that. And he adds, if Barkley plays at a decent level or better for the rest of the season, will he be our lineup if we were to draft a quarterback? All good questions. I'll go ahead and start. Do you think Ryan Pace is going to put together another excellent class for the 3rd time? Heck yeah. I have no doubt that he won't. Will he draft a quarterback? You better. If not, I'm a little worried. And if Barkley plays better or where he's at, will he possibly be in the lineup next year? Ooh, that's a tough one. I think it's too early to tell, but I would have to say probably not, unless he really tosses 2 to 3 touchdowns each of these last games and really proves that he can be like a difference maker. But right now, I'm still really gonna hold the pause button when it comes to hopping on that Matt Barkley bandwagon. Brandon, how about you?
Will Ryan Pace put together a 3rd solid draft? Yes, he will. 3rd time's a charm. I think he gets a home run on this one. That's my bold prediction for the draft. I'm making it right now. He hits a home run. Is Matt Barkley, if he plays better, the starter going forward? That is an if. I like what Matt Barkley's done. He follows the system that me and Will talk about. You have to sit him out for a year or 2, and that's exactly what Barkley's done. He came in against Tennessee, started his first career game, threw 2 picks in the red zone, which I know Will's not all happy about, and some people as well. You can't throw picks in the red zone. I get it. It was
Marcus
his first career
Mariota
start.
Has never thrown one, but okay, go ahead.
What's that?
So Marcus Mariota has still never thrown 1 pick in the red zone, and this is now halfway through his 2nd season. But go ahead.
But he's an overall better talent than Matt Barkley is, in my opinion.
Well, there we go. We want someone like a Marcus Mariota, not a Matt Barkley. But go ahead.
Well, exactly. But if Deshaun Watson's not on the board, and if Matt Barkley continues to impress or make strides continuously, then I think he is the guy that you go with, because I don't like any options in free agency. We're not going to get Kirk Cousins. He's going to ask for too much money. He'll end up going back to Washington. We talked about Tony Romo earlier. No, he's older, fragile. I just don't like that coming to Chicago. So then who's that leave you with? Anybody in the draft. And if we're going to follow history like Nick brought up, which I think is pretty accurate, like I said earlier, college football quarterback levels are so far apart, you're only going to get one or two guys a year, and I don't see that in this draft. I haven't watched a whole lot of it, but I really like Deshaun Watson. So that leaves Matt Barkley or David Fales. And I like Matt Barkley over David Fales. So that's why I'm sticking with the Matt Barkley train until someone can prove me wrong on that.
All right, Nick, go ahead.
So the answer Tristan's first question, will Pace have another excellent class third time? Of course he is. He's drafted a whole bunch of young guys who have produced, and no doubt in my mind that he has a third great draft. Will he draft a QB? Like you said, Will, he better. He has to draft a QB because there is no future quarterback on this roster. I don't think Barkley's the guy. And if Barkley plays well at a decent level, will he be, the rest of the season moving forward? The thing is, guys, I think, after this season plays out, I think Dow Loggins gets fired regardless because I don't think he's done enough this season to just keep his job. So whoever's playing quarterback is going to learn a new system. And it's hard to say if Brian Hoyer's still, on the roster, and if we keep him or not. I think you stick with Hoyer just because he's a veteran, but I just think that these quarterbacks are kind of screwed right now because just who the offensive coordinator is and going into next season. I think they're learning a new system because I don't think it really worked too well this season. I don't know about you guys, but I want to see a new offensive coordinator in here and hopefully draft a QB that's going to learn that system and develop under a veteran.
Well, when, we're scoring the second lowest points per game in the NFL, I understand that you might need to make a change at OC. But you guys didn't bring up one name in that entire conversation, which leads perfectly to our a question from Wanda Weidman of NFL Spin Zone. She asked, why is Connor Shaw completely irrelevant in the Bears quarterback situation? I'll start with this, Wanda. And for me, it's not that he's irrelevant. It's just that right now with that injury, he's just kind of put on the back burner, kind of the forgotten man. And he only, played one really good first half or one half in preseason. So it's still, you have to take that with a few grains of salt. Do I wish that he can come out here and be that kind of difference maker that we saw in preseason? Yeah, of course. But it's just really tough to tell. I think he will be back next year in training camp, mini camp. And I think that, the Bears will figure out kind of what they have with him. But is it impossible that he's not out there next year? No, it's not impossible. Is it unlikely? Yeah, very much so. But Connor Shaw is kind of it's still really hard to determine what kind of quarterback he actually would be when it comes to that NFL regular season games, especially including like playoff games. That entirely different picture. But B, go ahead.
Like you said, he's just kind of forgotten about. I think that's why he's kind of been irrelevant. Broken leg. I don't know if you guys seen the pictures of his rehab.
Gruesome.
It was pretty gross. It just looked weird. I don't know. Bruised up.
It was a bad injury, man.
It was a very bad injury. I agree. It just, I had to get out of it real quick. But I think it's just because it happened so long ago. He played well in the preseason for that one half, like Will talked about. So it's not that he's irrelevant. It's just that he's kind of forgotten about. And they'll give him a chance, and he'll come back. Whether or not he earns a spot, that's kind of how he plays in training camp, I think. So not that he's irrelevant, just kind of forgotten about.
Exactly. Nick, any thoughts here on Connor that we haven't hit on?
Well, not that you haven't hit. I mean, just it was a long time ago, and it was preseason. But the way Bears quarterbacks have gone down, you might as well keep him because, I mean, if he's healthy for the start of next season, you might need to end up playing him because Bears quarterbacks have gone down left and right. So Connor Shaw, you're not forgotten. It's been a while. That's all it is. So maybe, play well next preseason. You'll have a position on this roster. So,
all right. So sticking with the QB situation, one more question on that regard. Andy Rich said, surely a quarterback in the first round now. Trubisky or Kaiser. We kind of touched on that. So if you don't want to answer, that's okay. But he continued to say, that said, Allen or Garrett will be hard to turn down if on the board, which is very true. And he also asked, who is currently your dream first round pick in 2017? Brandon, what do you got?
Surely draft a quarterback in the first round. Like I said, if it's not Deshaun Watson in the first round, I'm not sure that I want him. And definitely not Deshaun Kaiser. I want to run some things, rattle the brain a little bit, see if we can jar the memory. The last two big-name quarterbacks to come out of Notre Dame are Brady Quinn and Chicago's beloved Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah.
Both were better at Notre Dame than they were in the NFL. I went and watched both of them play live when they were at Notre Dame because I've been coming to Purdue games since 2004. So I've seen both of them here. They've both played really well at Notre Dame, and it just never translated to the NFL. Secondly, Ryan Pace likes to get guys from winning organizations. Notre Dame is currently not winning. They just got smacked by USC over the weekend. They're 4-8. They haven't won a game on the road.
Hey, Matt Barkley played for USC, but go ahead.
Yes, he did. But another thing, what NFL talent does Notre Dame typically produce? Zach Martin, Dallas offensive line.
Tight ends is a big one.
And Golden Tate. Tyler Eifert, too, I guess, now that I think about it. He went to Notre Dame.
The guy that's on the Cowboys who has that injury, I forgot his name.
The guy in the Cowboys with the injury.
He hasn't played yet. It definitely doesn't play. Just adding to, the lack of talent.
Right. But Golden Tate was, I think, the last notable one that I could come up with. And Tyler Eifert.
Theo Riddick.
I was thinking about that one. I couldn't think of who the running back was. But either way, Golden Tate was 7 years ago, the last notable huge talent coming out of Notre Dame, and I think Kaiser just kind of follows suit with Quinn and Clausen. As far as Myler Garrett and Jonathan Allen, I don't watch a whole lot of SEC football. I'm from Big Ten country. That's mostly what I watch. I haven't watched anything outside of the Big Ten, to be totally honest. So that's why I'm going with Jabril Peppers or Desmond King as my dream picks as of right now. But you can't go wrong with getting guys out of Alabama. They are definitely a winning program. Nick Saban's smart. He typically gets the best players. So if I were to pick between the two, I'd say Jonathan Allen because Nick Saban's a pretty smart guy.
Awesome. I'll just go ahead. I'm just going to answer the dream pick in 17 because for me, I think you pretty much hit on everything. We've kind of talked about it for a while now. But my dream pick, geez, it's really tough because I think if it's a quarterback and Pace believes in him, it's fine by me. But just looking at the board right now, Peppers might be a really good one for the fact of the Bears defense needs difference makers, especially in the secondary, and I think that fills a huge void. And if we would grab him, we would have difference makers on the defensive line, linebackers, and also in the secondary. So all three, levels of that Bears defense would actually have someone to fear, which would just kind of, bolster that defense, which you can never go wrong. That's the Chicago Bears way, defense first and then offense. So I can understand that, and that's where I currently stand, but plenty of time for that to change. Nick?
For my dream pick, I think I've thought about the slide. It's either Jabril Peppers from Michigan or, Mitch Trubisky from North Carolina. If Pace believes in that's the quarterback to go with, and I've watched a whole bunch of film on him, I think, that'd be perfect for the Bears to, go and draft him. Jabril Peppers, obviously, I saw him play live here in Iowa when Michigan got upset. He's a great talent. He's very versatile. He could, like Brandon, you said, he could play punt returner, kick returner. He's a great player. But if Garrett from Texas A&M is still on the board, which I doubt he will be because he's just I've watched film on him because I've gotten questions about him. That's someone that Pace would love to draft. That's the guy. That's the best player available, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went. If Garrett or Allen were still on the board, I wouldn't be surprised if Pace gets one of those defensive guys because defensive guys they're gonna make an impact right away. But my dream pick is still. I'm going to go with Trubisky over Peppers just because I really like what he does at quarterback. Even though he's a little bit inexperienced, I like what he can do.
Awesome. The more I think about Peppers, the more he just feels like a Ryan Pace pick, actually. Just one of those
I just want to add the last JP, Julius Peppers. Didn't pan out so well, so that did kind of scare me a little bit, but what's in the name?
I mean, he wasn't bad his first couple of years here, and he was a little bit past his prime, but I'll move on. All right. So we have one final question, and this one also comes from our buddy Michael McNeil. His other question was, this one's not quarterback related, so here we go. Do you see Alshon returning to the Bears based on a roller coaster at quarterback and Ryan Pace failing to see a huge number one production on top of his PED suspension? What are we feeling in this situation? I feel better, actually, now that we have a few games removed. When Alshon's PED situation first arose, that with only his one touchdown this year, I was kind of thinking, I don't think he's going to come back. But the more you look at the Bears wide receivers without him, dropping all those balls last week, I don't know if it's really much on him right now. And yeah, I understand the lack of production. It's upsetting, but this Bears offense as a whole has not been producing. And on top of that, if you don't bring him back, what do you do? Because Kevin White is still a huge question mark. And other than that, I mean, it's all just, I mean, Cameron Meredith is still one of those guys. I think you're just going to see him flashes, but no, he's not going to be a role beater. So, Daniel Braverman is someone who we hope can become a slot guy, but he's never going to be he's not a number one, not even close. So the Bears, if they want a number one receiver, they need to find a way to retain Alshon, for next season, because without him, I think we might enter another stretch of the Bears not having a true number one like we did for the longest time throughout like the mid 2000s, early 2000s and all that. But B, what are you thinking in terms of Alshon?
I don't think he wants to be here necessarily. His offseason comments about, I'm just going to let my agent figure this contract thing out, that kind of raised some red flags for me. I'm not sure necessarily that, he wants to be here. And it does raise questions for Ryan Pace. What do we do for depth? We know he's reliable. The lack of production kind of comes from the quarterback position because he's got to get Alshon the ball. With his injury history, just a whole lot of things aren't playing well for Alshon to get the big contract that he wants. So if the price is right, I imagine Ryan Pace will bring him back. I think he's the last piece in the Trestman era-esque that could possibly be removed from the locker room, and the locker room have kind of better jives, vibes, whatever. I don't know what his presence in the locker room is, so I can't be for certain on that. But things are shaping out for him to come back to Chicago for the right price. But I'm just not sure that he wants to be here.
Okay, because I just pulled up, the free agents for who are going to enter for the wide receivers this year, and other than Alshon guys, it's not looking good at all. I mean, so it's kind of a little scary. But Nick, let's get to you. We're kind of running a little long here on the show, so go ahead. What are your thoughts on Alshon?
Alshon Jeffrey loves the Chicago Bulls, so he's going to stay. No, just kidding. He used to play basketball, actually. But, Alshon Jeffrey, I think, besides him, like you said, Will, question marks with Kevin White. Cameron Meredith is still, trying to see what kind of player he can become. Marquise Wilson's been injured throughout his career. Joshua Bellamy can't catch a wide open touchdown. Deontay Thompson shouldn't be playing receiver. So there's no depth at the wide receiver position for the Bears. And I think that they have to bring him back because there is no true number one on the Bears team.
Yeah, I think you have to take the chance with them, because without it, I think that it's really going to detriment, this Bears offense, which is already struggling immensely to score points, to do much of anything. And I think if you're taking away one of your best playmakers, I don't know how you're going to replace him. You can try in the draft, but again, we saw with Kevin White, that's not always a given. So it's definitely a big, thing that the Bears need to figure out. But overall, let's do a different opinion here. Do you want him back? I say yes. B?
Yeah, I was looking at the rest of the receiver roster, and if you said the free agents are thin, then it'd be nice to have a security blanket.
Yeah, they're thinner than me, so take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I definitely want him back.
All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank you all again for watching live or listening to the podcast. Hopefully we can do some more Bears questions again next week, because that was actually kind of fun. Not going to lie. We're going to have to keep this a staple in our weekly preview podcast. And if you guys want, submit questions during the Bears games, and we will answer them as well immediately following. So we're going to talk to you after the 49ers game in the battle between two pretty bad teams. And we will break down all of the action, which is probably going to be pretty ugly, so bear with them. But until then, guys, bear down Chicago.